In the name of God the Almighty, peace to you. Today I will speak about science and the difference between the science of today, or the science we know about, and the knowledge of certainty. First, we should start with a definition of science. What is science? Science, basically, if we want to use the word literally, means knowledge. However, the modern science is more about, I call it temporary knowledge, because as long as we are still conducting experiments and observation and doing comparison and all these things, we are still not having the final answer. That means our knowledge is temporary. That means a theory that could be still useful today. It could be, proven false after a decade or a century, and something else will replace it. So that's why I would rather call modern science as temporary knowledge. And what are the branches of science as we know them, or as in academies, or how they define them today? There are three branches: the natural science, like biology, physics, and chemistry, and the social science, like psychology, uh, and the sort of studying the consciousness and the human behavior and animal behavior and those things, and the formal science like mathematics and computer science and logic. So these are the three branches that modern science work with. We hear always that people boasting about believing in science. As I said, science, the word science means knowledge, but when we look at the science we have today, whether it's natural science, formal science, or social science, it is, for me, temporary knowledge, not final knowledge. So there is no certainty in major parts of what we have today as science, because a theory, as I said, could be proven wrong after a decade or a century and could be replaced with something else. A discovery in archaeology could also prove that what we know about history, for example, is not any more valid. Having problem here today. So I'm here today to speak about the difference between temporary knowledge and knowledge of certainty. If we look at the three branches of science, and that's even admitted by the scientists themselves, natural science is the one that we can have fact out of it, especially in biology and chemistry. Because in biology, uh, we know, for example, that every human body has a pancreas, has a heart, has we know what the organs inside a human body are and where are they located, for example. Of course, there is some minor deformation or deformities and some bodies, but they are very few and very rare cases. But in general, the facts are the human body is formed in this or that way. So these are the facts, and natural science is maybe the closest of the branches of science to the knowledge of certainty. That means we are certain about what the functions of the organs of the human body are, and how and where and each organ is located, and all this sort. Also, we understand the cycle of life of animals, insects, and all the sorts through observations, through experiments, and the sort. So the word natural science is very important. The word natural, because it comes from nature. Okay, and that's why. And if you ask any scientist what's the definition of science, he will say it's understanding the order of nature or the order of the universe. Okay, so when a scientist is, whether he's atheist or someone who believes in God, he has to admit that there is an order in the universe. There are order of laws that made the universe. That means it can't be understood if there was no laws. We couldn't understand anything if there is no order in the universe and nature and everything. And that's in itself an admission that must be a designer behind, an intelligent designer behind all what we see. All right. So the knowledge of certainty is that we have to have an order. We know for certain that we have to have an order in the universe in order to understand it and understand its laws. Okay? So this information is a knowledge of certainty. But when people who speak about coincidence and all this, they can speak as much as they like, but they are only guessing, they are wishful thinkers, they have nothing to do with the truth. They have no facts. Okay? So, natural science is mainly based on facts. As I said, it's very simple to understand. For example, how the bee function, where it goes, what type of flowers, and all the sorts through observation. Because every species have the same almost characteristics and uh, lifestyle, if you want. So we have to just observe in order to understand how nature around us function. Also in chemistry, when we go to identify all the chemical elements around us, and we try with our experiment to merge them together in order to have a new uh, product, if you like, or new mixture that we could use in our daily life. This is also a use of something natural, because all the chemicals are also always are made, we found them in nature. And however, when we mix things that are harmful to nature, we are hurting ourselves and we are hurting nature. That's why when we discover something that is harmful and we understand that it's harmful, we should stop using it or producing it or making this a lethal mixture, for example. If I understand that if I mix this chemical element with that and I will get something poisonous, I should not produce the mixture. I should put a red flag, do not do this and that. But what we have today, I mean, since the Industrial Revolution, since the late 19th century, that people discovered, for example, dynamite and everything that makes weapons, etc. Instead of not using that, they liked it because it gave them power, and they like to wage wars and to be in a more powerful position than their neighbors, and that has driven us to where we are today, with many countries having nuclear weapons and all the sort. So we have to understand science and the laws of nature, but we have to use them for our goodness, not to destroy what we have. This is a point where science doesn't go hand in hand with human life, because people are abusing the knowledge they have. They are not twinning their improvement or their focus on science. They are not twinning that with wisdom and with justice, with responsibility. They are using it for sake of power, force, greed, and all the selfish reasons. So it's clear natural science is maybe the only branch of science that could fall, not 100%, because today we have many theoretical physicists who sitting behind their desk in London or in Berlin, and they are talking about what's the function of the black holes, for example. Just guessing, working their imagination out, imagining things. So we have many theories in physics that could not be applied to produce us any technological tool in our daily life. Unfortunately, technology has been advanced since the Industrial Revolution, because technology is the applied science on what tools, what new machines we could have to ease our life, but we crossed all the red lines there too. Especially today, when we know it's what we are producing, it's polluting more and more the ecosystem, and we are still not refraining from that. So there is abuse of science, clearly. There is no, it's not twinned with wisdom or responsibility. And that's why we are having trouble in all sorts and all fields of science, almost. When it comes to social science, like psychology and understanding human behavior and animal behavior and the sort, I don't count it uh, at all something that is having big credibility. I don't count it a knowledge of certainty at all, and I think it's more opinionated, because it differs from a psychologist to another, and not all humans have the same characteristics. They don't have the same reaction towards things, and it all depends about the environment they are born in, and the milieu they grew up in, and all the sorts. So to have a psychological rule, for example, that each, for example, like Sigmund Freud said, for example, that a brother has to be envied or envying to his brother, it's not necessarily the case. Some people are not. So we cannot have a general rule in social science, because each and every individual is different than the other when it comes to their own personality. So this science is more opinionated. There is no knowledge of certainty there, but it's one of of many attempts to get consciousness understood scientifically rather than spiritually. They are trying to replace spirituality with something called social science, or trying to, um, uh, using, for example, the media and all these things in order to influence as much people as they can. However, it will never work on anybody. Yes, it could work on a majority, for example, but you could not trick 100% of the population. Never. So that's why I call this not a science that we could rely on, or we could put it under knowledge of certainty, because it's not coming from God, it's coming from man himself. While natural science is coming from God, because God made this body this way. Everybody knows now where the organs are. Everybody knows, for example, what the bees are doing in nature. Everybody knows how the crows function, and all the sort, because it's natural. It's coming from God, so there is knowledge of certainty. The movement of the moon and the sun and all this pre-designed things, they all exist, and we have facts, because it's coming from natural phenomenon. They are made by the same designer, and it is there in the order of universe for us to see, to observe, to understand, to absorb the information as a fact. So there we have knowledge of certainty. As I said, social science is not the same at all. It's never a knowledge of certainty. It's some kind of opinionated kind of knowledge, or temporary knowledge, or partial knowledge, but it's never something that we could say it's a certain knowledge, or something that we could generalize on a larger scale. The formal science, which is mathematics and computer science and the likes and logic, also it's not even counted in science as a true science, because it's also related to, because there are many uh, nothing that could, it's more theoretical, nothing practical coming out of it, unless you want to count calculation and of numbers, something useful. Because I'm not here saying this, because natural science also including the astronomy and the sort, while mathematics and computer science and logic and all the sort, they are not something that you could apply and rely on real life, unless you are just speaking about, for example, architecture or geometry or the sort. And logic is also an open, whatever it comes to consciousness and logic and psychology and all the sort of things, it's more opinionated. However, we can agree on some type of logic. So there is, as I said, there is no temporary knowledge and knowledge of certainty. That's the point I'm trying to help you see the difference between the two, because many people around us today boast believing in science, and they think that science means facts, while in the vast majority of sciences we have no facts. We have temporary knowledge, which is true until proven false, because experiments are always going on and observation are always going on. Even the universe is still expanding. The laws of yesterday do not apply today, and many other things. So that's the difference between temporary knowledge and knowledge of certainty. There's also a point I want to make. Even the laws of physics itself, I mean the theories we have, the Newton theories, Einstein theories, and every physical theory, physics theory that we rely on in our daily life. They are not necessarily true to a full degree. They are close to the truth, yes, but they are not 100% true. For example, to give you an example, if you hit anything on the wall, anything from your table, you throw it at the wall and it goes back to the floor. You have to study what the floor is. Is it wooden floor? Is it stone floor? Is it carpet? And what the wall is made of. So even the equation that you could agree on to, for example, to measure, uh, for example, the trajectory of what you throw at the wall and how far it came back and what's the force you throw it and all the sort. It depends on many things that no single equation that could have all of that involved in one equation. For example, you have to, what did you throw? You throw, for example, something liquid or something solid, and if solid, it was a pen, for example, or a cup, or what is made of, and what is the size, and what is the shape, and the wall, what is made of. It is, for example, stone or wood or what, and the floor, or everything. You have to you take all the aspects of the thing in order to have 100% true answer. However, you could have, of course, an approximate answer using an equation that everybody is using or relying on. So you understand the point? Nothing is 100% true, even if you rely on equations that everybody uses. For example, let me give you another example. A photographer took a photograph, for example, on the street from behind, a woman having a child with her, standing next to each other, okay? And someone asked you how many people there are in the photo. You say two, correct? But then you will discover the same two people taken from the same photographer by another angle, and now you could see, for example, the profile of the woman, and she's standing and she's pregnant. How many people are there? If you want to count the one and the fetus, that means we are having three, or maybe four if she has twin. So it's always, we have to understand that not everything, we don't always, what we see is the complete truth or the full truth. You see? So there's always could be something hidden that could ruin our entire uh, uh, facts about something. That's why we have to, I'm not saying that we should not rely on science. Of course, science is very important because it makes us, as I said, understand the laws of nature and understand God and knows His magnificent power. But we also have to understand that no one can take spirituality off the chart. And how I can prove that to you? Just make a comparison. Go through the big name of scientists throughout history. Check them. The biggest ever scientists who discovered things, who put laws or equations or uh, mathematical, for example, sequence, whatever. Go check. on Google, for example. Have a list of the names and check the biography of each and every one. And you will see that the vast majority that gave us something useful for our daily lives, whether it's electricity, water supply, trains, plane, anything that is lasting and important for our daily life, you will see that they were believers in God. They were spiritually awake. They were connected to the source of knowledge, the source of everything. Come to my mind always Nikola Tesla, because he always believed that we have in our mind a superpower that is, when it's tuned and connected to the super powerful source, which is God, everything, we could see everything and we could know what we know not. Okay, and I can't see any scientist who's greater than Nikola Tesla in the history of the human race. While on the other hand, if you want to check out the atheist scientists, plenty of blah 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 theories that are thrown in the air, nothing proven, nothing really very useful for our daily life. So then you judge that spirituality is very important when we come from a truly faithful dedication in our work. When we come to work as one with God, then He will open the doors of knowledge to us. And as I said, you can check the names of big scientists, whether it's Leonardo da Vinci, Galileo Galilei, Michael Faraday, Nikola Tesla, Gregory Mendel, Albert Einstein. They all believed in God. Not necessarily the way God is introduced through holy text, but they believed in a superpower that's out there that created everything around us. And of course, Isaac Newton, I missed mentioning. These are the main names of science and the history of the human race. That not mention the scientists of the, for example, the Islamic Golden Age and the scientists of ancient Greece. Go check the names. These are the scientists who brought us something we can put under knowledge of certainty, because their knowledge came from the source, the true source, not out there wishful thinking and guessing and imagining things. Understand the point? Understood it? So that's it from me today, because actually I can speak days about that, because it's a very vast topic and we could go into details, but all what I wanted from this video is to make people see what's the difference between modern science and knowledge of certainty. And because many people, when I see on social media posting about science, we believe in science. For example, now we have a virus and they are counting on the vaccines that could be given through science or medicine or whatever. They don't understand, if God decides something or the divine algorithm activates something and he wants to achieve something out of it spiritually, no science can stop it. Because anything you know about the virus and you have been studying and you establish your vaccine, there will be new variant and many changes that will make your vaccine invalid. So we have to understand that science is a very good way to understand God laws and nature, and God magnificent creation. However, we should not, it will never replace spirituality. It's very important for the scientist to be spiritually awakened in order to be a successful scientist, and in order to be a scientist who bring us knowledge of certainty, not wishful thinking. And they cannot achieve a spiritual awakening without being sincere, honest. For example, Nikola Tesla, he wanted to that all the world have the power of electricity for free. He wasn't working for his own name, for his own selfish reason, for his own financial well-being. You see the difference between him, for example, or Thomas Edison, for example. So let us be neutral when we talk about anything. And I'm talking here about the people who boast about science, but in reality, many of them, they share things on social media, well, but they don't know what science is. They look like the religious ignorant who know nothing about God, and they keep sharing about their own religious teaching without understanding anything other than superficiality of the things they are reading or looking at. Okay, that's it from me today. Bye for now.